Hey guys, today I want to talk sort of a high level video this is not a video that will help you get to legend, but it's probably a video that will, I think that even players who are very good players but don't just kind of do things and don't really think about what Hearthstone is about, I think this will help them. It's kind of what I think is the most important thing, skill for Hearthstone. And I think people sometimes when they think of Hearthstone, maybe who still respect Hearthstone, sometimes people in Hearthstone think of just crazy RNG and stuff, and maybe people who have more respect for the competitive side think, oh, it's about these complex, really intricate 500 IQ plays. But I think what Hearthstone at its most core, and I think this is the thing that separates world class players from players that just maybe even get top 200 legend, but don't just get those repeated things. I think Hearthstone is about value judgments. And what I mean so by that is being able to evaluate different plays and looking at which one gets us to our win condition better. And especially so I think at the core of that, what does that mean? That means so the main win condition in I'd say 99.999% of games is put your opponent's life to zero without getting your life put to zero, because technically it's a tie if both are at the same time. And I think there are some exceptions. There's exceptions where you play for a tie in fatigue. There's exceptions where there are things like Mechathon where you win with that. But I'm going to make it a little bit simpler. You can see even already with our win condition how complicated this is going to get. So you have what gets us to our win condition of putting our opponent's life down to zero. And that's kind of a hard place to start. A simple place to start, but it gets complicated really fast. So we have all these different values in Hearthstone, and I think probably the most important fundamental value is tempo and board. But there are certain decks that throw that away and don't care about tempo and board at all. There's value, there's combo pieces, there's disrupting your opponent's game plan, there's life gain, there's gaining more mana, there's reducing your opponent's mana. There's so many different values in Hearthstone. And when you're playing a game, you have to sort of know, like, okay, if I'm playing OTK Demon Hunter, for example, can I throw this piece away? Can I not throw this piece away? Is this something I have to throw away even though I don't want to? There might be a spot where you're playing and throwing an I-beam away might reduce your chance of lethaling your opponent with an OTK by 95%, but it also, not throwing the I-beam away makes you 98% sure that they're going to kill you next turn. So you have to look at these competing values. And I think that's what Hearthstone is about. It's about competing values. It's about different things that are important going against each other. And that's hard because I think we're used to wanting to say, okay, do I do this? Is this? Even with cards, people will say things like, this card's just good, or this card's just bad. And what you look at as a deck builder, I think, if you want to be a great deck builder, and I think I've got enough stuff to say, at least I've done some great deck building. And I think one of the things that I get annoyed by deck builders, and people say this, you just got to put this card in, and they don't realize you always have a competing value judgment. You always, by putting in another card, it means taking out a card. So you always have to look at, what am I taking out? Whenever you do a play, it's at the expense of another play. If you're using mana, you can't use mana on something else. If you're using a card now, you can't use it later. If you're sometimes even generating resources, you might generate some resources, you might miss a top deck, and you have so many of these competing value judgments. I think that's what's at the core of Hearthstone. So I think one of the things, if you want to, I think, get this mindset that I think will help you become a great player, you got to get out of this one-dimensional view of good and bad. You say, if you have, I think there's really good heuristics out there that will really help you get to legend, maybe even top 1,000 legend. And these heuristics will start really hurting you as you get higher and higher up. Good example is tempo good. An amazing heuristic to get to legend. It's honestly, when I am coaching new students who are trying to get to legend for the first time, it's usually me just yelling at them, tempo, 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 minions, 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 because they just won't do that enough, and they haven't instilled that value, instilled that rule. But I think as I get higher up at my level, and I see other players, all of a sudden you might say, well, maybe I'll hold this resource. And you can go to the other extreme a lot easier. So there's a lot more potential cost. But if you want to play in that top 1% or even that top 0.1% of level, you need to be looking at these value judgments all the time. Do I hold back this resource? Do I use this resource really frugally here? You have to be looking at these competing value judgments all the time. And that is hard. I think that is hard. That is difficult, and you can't just. And I think if you're looking to just autopilot and win, and just jam things, I think that's both. I find this lesson both encouraging and discouraging. If you're kind of just like, oh, I just want to play a bunch in this, you need to be thinking all the time. And good players are always thinking about every decision. They're thinking about, is this better than this? Because it looks like sometimes you have what looks like players will agonize over what something seems like the most simplest of decisions. Oh, why aren't you playing your one drop? I know I used to still get really annoyed by players, druids, that would tank on turn 2 and then go wild growth back when wild growth was 2 mana. I'm like, of course you're going wild growth. But you know what? Maybe they have a spot where they're considering the 1%, the tiny percentage of chance where there's a good reason to not go wild growth. Maybe they want to get a hero power and hit your guy. Maybe they want to hold information. Now these plays are bad 99.99% of the time, but maybe that's that tiny percentage. And players are looking for those opportunities when they have excess mental energy to say, maybe I can just do a little bit, play a little bit better. And I think that's, when I watch players that I think are really, really good, if I'm watching their streams, often there are players, I think one of the things is often you'll see really, really good players make horrible technical mistakes. And you think, oh, I could do this. They're top 20 legend. Look at that. They forgot to tap first, or they missed 2 damage or something like that. And you might think, how good are these players really? And I think part of the reason that they can get away with sometimes these really technical mistakes is because their value judgments are so good. Because while they might have made a technical mistake, their values were on point. They were using their energy on that sometimes. So if they get them to play perfectly, but they didn't realize, they just didn't even want to do that play because maybe they did a nice Risky Skipper Armor Smith Battle Rage play, but really they should have held that till later. Stuff like that. And because they were trying to execute that. So that's, as a player, if you want to get really good, part of the power of learning your technical plays really well. Things like Risky Skip Armor Smith plays, stuff like that, in Enrage Warrior. Things like Veil Weaver plays where you're going off an RNG or World Kick Rogue, stuff like that, is because it allows you to make value judgments very quickly. So if I know very well that with this amount of mana, with this minions on board, with this amount of damage, I can clear a board, leave maybe 1 or 2 minions up while drawing cards, or I can clear all the minions, get more armor. I can make these value judgments very quickly. So I can say, what's more important? And I can do this, say, do I want to draw 5 cards? Or do I want to gain an additional 12 armor and full clear their board? And depending on the situation. So I think that's a part of the power of learning the technical plays really well. So that's just the lesson. I might go more on this. So I'm going to go now, and I'm going to kind of go over some examples from games where I think we have really interesting value judgments. And kind of, like I said, I think this is one of the core lessons of Hearthstone. Hey guys, before I kind of go through some games and I show you some interesting spots, I kind of want to give because I was talking about different value judgments, and there are so many values, but I want to give an example of a very standard play and all the value judgments that go into it. And I want the standard play is going Zephyr on 2. Very standard play, and pretty much 99% of players do it, but my friend Paper Ninja, who is a very good priest player, was got #1 legend with Highlander Priest multiple times and held it for a long time, told me in priest mirrors, don't play Zephyr on 2, it's better later. And this was a very interesting kind of thing to me, because it was like the so standard logic is I'm going to play Zephyr on 2 to get wild growth. And I think it's not 100% decision. We also had this interesting thing of keeping Zephyr. Do we always keep Zephyr? And then I think we looked at some stats and we saw there are a few matchups where Zephyr was actually better thrown away. And I think the interestingness of it was a very good finisher. And it was this thing where I don't remember what matchup. It might have been Priest versus Mage in the past. But it might have been a thing of having Zephyr as a finisher was more valuable than having Zephyr early, where it wasn't that valuable. Now, this is, like I said, these are very uncommon scenarios. But I just kind of want to show you this example. I want to talk about just playing Zephyrs on 2. I want to give first a list of powerful reasons to play, benefits of playing Zephyr on 2, and then reasons to save. And then I'm going to kind of talk about how different things and different matchups could affect this and affect these values. So what do we first play Zephyrs on 2? One, we get a 3/2. So we use our mana, we get a 3/2. That's valuable. Sometimes that can actually be one of the most valuable things about playing Zephyr is it's a 3/2. And you know, if your opponent is a maybe more slower deck, sometimes that Zephyr on 3/2, if they don't have a good removal source, it might do 6 or 9 or even 12 damage. Number 2 is if we pick Wild Growth, which is what we usually do, is one, to use our mana efficiently and get more mana. So I think mana effectiveness. I think third reason with Wild Growth, but we also could go take Backstab, so we can use it also as early board control. And I think the advantage of taking out with a Backstab is taking out minions early is better than taking out minions late. But taking out minions late is scalable. So by that I mean, so if our opponent goes Flame, let's say we're going first, we pass on 1, and our opponent goes Flame Imp on 2. If we go Zephyr Backstab, let's say we don't have an answer, let's say we don't have a Breath, we don't have a Holy Nova, we don't have a Smite, that Flame Imp might be doing ridiculous amounts of damage. So let's say we somehow know we're going to clear the board on 5, which we actually don't have any good clears. But let's just say assume we have some card. Well, that Flame is going to do 3, 6, 9, 12 damage to us. That's so much damage. Where with the Zephyr Backstab, it can't do it. So that's because minions, every turn they're on board, do something. So that's the advantage of playing a minion, where if you do like a weapon, you get a few uses out of it, and if you burn something like a fireball, you get some 1 use only. So you can see the power, especially of early minions. But the weakness of minions is often removal scalable. So if I play, a ton of minions on turn 6 or 7, and then I just go Zephyr Brawl, it kills all of them but 1. So I think that can be some of the advantage. But yeah, like I said, so on 2, we get removing early minions with a Backstab is better. A 3, there's a lot of little subtle things. It's an elemental. What does that mean? Maybe if you're running elemental allies in your deck. So if you're playing Highlander Mage, you play on this. That's a reason. 4, another reason, getting in your revive pool. So if you run Raise Dead for Priest, or even if you're playing a Highlander Zoo Warlock or something, you could get it back, which could be valuable. Another reason could be to get minions on board. So, for example, when I was trying to figure out how to beat Turtle Mage with Highlander Priest, and I almost pulled it off in GM, one of the things that I learned was that just getting, the faster you can get on board, the better. So it was actually probably better to go Animal Companion, so he goes there for Animal Companion, which could be really useful. So that was another reason. I want to give some reasons why we would save. So we've covered like a lot of the benefits of playing Zephyr early. I want to talk about the benefits of saving Zephyr. One of the benefits, the biggest probably benefit of saving Zephyr is targeted tech cards. So something like Ooze isn't a very good card until our opponent has a weapon, and then it's an insanely good card. So being able to get an Ooze or targetable removal. So let's say we don't have a Holy Nova or a Breath in hand, and our opponent plays a bunch of 2L things. Being able to go Zephyr Holy Nova is so much better than one Zephyr backstab. So that can be another powerful reason to get scalable removal. Because removal is generally scalable. So if our opponent has a 20/20 Edwin, it doesn't matter. Zephyr Shadow Death kills it. If our opponent has 7 2/2s from a Glowfly Swarm, one Holy Nova kills it. So it's a thing of where if you're doing things like Zephyr Backstab, if you're trying to just do it with minions, it's a lot harder. Try trading minions off to kill a 20/20 Edwin, you're going to have a bad time. So that's one of the things is Zephyr can give targeted scalable removal. That's why it's one of the strongest cards of the game. So that's a benefit of saving it. Another benefit of potentially saving it is I think there is heavy late game value. So this is a Zephyrian. This is you can maybe certain games just are very unlikely to be closed out quickly. If you're playing, a Priest Mirror or maybe against Highlander Mage, you might look at your hand and say, especially if you're thinking about ramping into it, you don't have a lot of stuff to ramp into. You don't have a very good aggressive hand. Maybe you have a lot of removal already. So by waiting with Zephyr, you can kind of have more value in the late game, get a bigger card, where Wild Growth is a 3-mana card, where a Tyrion is a powerful 8-mana card. So the advantage is you can get more value out of Zephyr, basically. Another reason to save Zephyr is we have minions we'd rather play than Zephyr. A real good example is with Highlander Hunter. If you have, let's say you go Blazing Battle Mage on one, and you can either go Zephyr or the Imprisoned Felmaw on 2, I'd rather go Imprisoned Felmaw. That's one, it's a much more aggressive play, it's higher statted, it's going to pay off in 2 turns, so there's a lot more benefits to just, you have a conflicting play, and we already have the minions. So Zephyr can be really nice for filling out the curve, but if you already have, let's say, a 1, 2, and a 3 drop, let's say you're on coin, you have Blazing Battle Mage, Imprisoned Felmaw, and Animal Companion, well, chances are you don't need the Zephyr now, so you'd rather wait for it later because its opportunity cost is a lot higher. Where sometimes with Zephyr, if you're let's say you're playing and you don't have a 3 drop, you don't have a 4 drop, you have a 5 drop, well, you're going to pass 3 different turns. Or if you go Zephyr Wild Growth, you can maybe you can play, for example, a Cobalt Spellkin on the following turn. So it allows you to very naturally curve out. But if you already have a great curve, Zephyr not as good for for that situation. So like I said, that can be a thing of often cards have value, plays have value, but our opportunity costs are higher. So we go back to reasons to play Zephyr. Zephyr being a 3/2 goes way down when we already have a 2 drop. So because of that, in those situations, we often cross that reason out. So then all of a sudden, Zephyr becomes less valuable. A reason to actually go even weight that gets really high level, that's very, very niche, is to actually have less minions on the board so our opponent can't target things. These are such small scenarios, but sometimes, against an OTK-DH, you might be intentionally trying to clear, or against an ETC warrior, you might be, and this is less on Zephyr on 2, but you might be holding Zephyr to intentionally not give your opponent a play. So let's say, for example, actually, you think your opponent's going to go into a Sorcerer's Apprentice play with a Cyclone. Well, they might want to go Ray of Frost. So maybe if you're really confident they're going to go that next turn, by having less minions on board, you force them to Ray of Frost their own minions. So that's less of Zephyr on 2, but that's kind of another reason you might want to hold, like the minion element of something might actually be a negative. Or actually a really good example is if you're going against a rogue. And I actually I played Zephyr on 2 against X-Blaze X as Highlander mage. And I actually think this was a mistake that in hindsight I wish cost me the game, where he had 3 kept cards and I had Reno in hand. I was like, all right, I'm going to go Zep Wildgrowth. I had really good reasons to go Zep Wildgrowth. And by having a minion on board, he's able to go backstab coin Edwin on turn 2. And if I had not played Zephyr, he would not be able to do that play. He would only be able to go coin Edwin. So that's a reason why holding Zephyr on 2 can benefit you. You know, maybe you're going on coin and your opponent, you by not playing Zephyr on 2, let's say you have a read that they might have backstab miscreant. By not playing Zephyr on 2, they can't do that backstab miscreant play. So they would just have to do something else, because they wouldn't have the combo. So that's another reason, like allowing your minion to be targeted can be a negative. And like I said, that was an added reason in my game against Xplies X in Masters Tour, where I played Zephyr on 2. If I had waited and I had kind of the read from looking at the cards in their hand, I probably would have won the game. And I actually look back and I think it's understandable about growth, but the smarter, I think it wasn't just hindsight bias. Like, I think that I've been in these spots before, and I've often, if my opponent has multiple kept cards, I've adjusted my play and had hand reads saying, okay, they're rogue. They've kept 3 cards. They're on coin. What else are they keeping? They're keeping an Edwin. I need to save that Zephyr to kill that Edwin. So that can be another reason of like hand reading and kind of interactivity of your opponent's board to say, all right, that has the benefit for the Edwin of both saving it and denying the backstab value. So anyways, so I've gone over a ton of reasons of just one little play on all these different factors for Zephyr on 2. And that's why you can see just from this one play how much more there is to everybody's just going to be. Now, chances are I often say I'm going Zephyrs on 2 because I'm a bad player, because I just don't want to think about all those things. I just want to say, if I'm streaming sometimes, I just want to go Wild Growth. There's too much to think about here. But it's something to get in the habit. If you want to be a good player, when you want to really focus, to start just thinking about all these different things and try and get your brain to be like, oh, what is this or this? Like, is the 3-2 important? Is there elements where I don't want to get backstabbed to activate a combo activator? Is there an element of, is this resource more important later? Do I have a wand maker and another play in hand where, ramping isn't really that useful because I have a bunch of low curve stuff anyways? Do I have a really high curve stuff? So even though there's some benefits of saving it, like if I have a Solmir and I have a Dragon Queen Alexstrasza on hand, it might be a lot more benefits to just get that wild growth. So you want to be looking at all these different factors and deciding, okay, what is the most important? What all these value judgments that we make, which one does it tilt? And it's hard. Anyways, that's why I wanted to talk about that example. Now I'm going to do some games where I evaluate kind of different value judgments I made. Guys, so I wanted to go over some spots where I felt like I played really well. So you can see here, I'm playing Guardian Druid, I think Malagos Druid, and I'm in a spot where I have a good hand. I have Breath of Dreams and a dragon. And normally in this spot, I think about this, it's very natural for me to go Breath on 2, and then on turn 4, no, then on turn 5, turn 4 I could do something like Swipe to clear the board, and then on turn 5 I can go Coin, Innervate, Ysera. Very natural play. And I do a very weird play that probably in most scenarios would be very bad, where I go Coin, Breath. And the reason why is he had 3 keeps. And I know what kind of cards is he going to keep going first, because Edwin is not as good for us. He's going to be keeping Cold Neophyte and Dirty Tricks. And I wanted to get this before he could do it. And I had to read it from his kept cards. And that play ended up being really, really, I think, really important. Because one, he probably could have just gone Cold Neophyte there, denied me my breath, and then he could have followed up with Dirty Tricks and put me just really behind. So because of that, I was able to I think, get an advantage here. So just really happy with my play there. Just wanted to show that spot, just because I think the very, very standard play, if you're not looking at your opponent's hand, is to wait to go on to ramp, maybe do a swipe, and then innervate out Ysera with the following turn. And I went against that for the reasons I just stated. So this is me playing Monsanto, and I liked just the overall way I played this matchup. And I think I'm going to show one against Bloody Face playing Bomb Warrior as well. But I think the way I kind of started to approach this matchup was that instead of being kind of really aggressive on board, I found that by just having a little bit of stuff every turn, because I'd been practicing this matchup, and I think at least the Rage Warriors kind of moved to this now because we have ETC, we have a lot more powerful OTK combos, and removal so good, but removal wasn't as good. So I think for a while it was a little bit different, where I think in Rage Warrior valued board tempo a lot more. So see here, I'm just trying to be a little bit annoying all the time. Even here, I think I take Brightwing and I play it. Let's see which one I do. Yeah, and my mindset here was that he can often kill my 3/1 with a Bladestorm pretty easily with a weapon hit, and I felt like this would give me also another play potentially for next turn. So I'm just trying to just have continuous plays, just continuous little bits of board, because I have 2 Bloodsworns in hand here. So it's a thing of it's kind of awkward. But I have potentially good finishers. So he does this. Hit the bomb. Let's see, what do I do next here? Weapon hit first. Play some lackeys. I believe I go Bloodsworn. Yeah. So I do this, and I actually make a mistake here that I kind of realized afterwards. I don't think I should have taunted this. I think I should have taunted one of my other guys, because thinking, oh, taunt the big minion, deny this. But I gave him lots of chorus outs. This was definitely a likely play. So I think taunting up one of the 1/3s would have been better, because you can see here, I think I'm a little frustrated because I realized my mistake. But in general, I'm just putting something a little bit annoying down every turn of the turn. I'm never really going all in. I'm just these little bit of lackeys, this little bit of pressure, and it's just annoying for him, because he always has to deal with the fact that, well, if he doesn't deal with the minion, I'm going to do some face damage. But if he does deal with the minion, then he can't proactively activate his own game plan. So he's kind of in this conundrum often. And that's kind of because I think the way, so this is just, I'm just approaching it, because often, I'd want to have that 6/4, get more value, stuff like that. But it's a spot where I think I'm just saying, I don't think it's as important. Let's see, what do I end up doing here? I think I just do something really boring, like re-equip weapon, and then, oh no, I remember this play. I go, this was great. I know these are so annoying. I've been practicing these, and these plays for against Bomb Warrior, because they don't have minions, they don't have stuff to soak up. So this is just so much damage on their face. And if they remove it with stuff, like if they move it to Brawl, they're taking damage. There's just no great options. And if you use a Brawl, he's using all his mana. So he's just kind of in a very, and I just keep doing these little annoying plays. And I just found that doing this kind of stuff in this matchup was really helping in the practice. Where I think before I try and get these big Terrans and these big stuff, and I kind of learned that value-wise that these just weren't as good in the Bomb Warrior matchup. Let's see what, yeah. And so kind of one of the things that in Inner Rage, I think in these matchups is incredibly valuable as an OTK finisher, where in certain matchups, because I'd learned, if I went, for example, in inner rage when I was practicing this matchup on a Warm Challenger, I do, a very common play is you go inner rage Bloodsworn, but the problem was that they would just kill up the Bloodsworn and then go Bladestorm. So you can see here, I'm just doing a little bit of damage. I buffed up this to just get a little more damage. And all of a sudden, he's at 11 health. And I haven't done anything crazy this game. I haven't, had this play. All I've been doing is just hitting a little damage here, a little damage there. I did one Bomb Wrangler play, but all I've been doing is just having a little thing on board every turn and always making Hung uncomfortable. And that's kind of what I found was valuable in this matchup, where I think, like I said, the way I played it before I'd really figured it out, was I'd be like, oh, big thing, kill the thing. Like that was kind of my mindset. And I think that was an incorrect mindset. Oh, what do I remember? What do I do here? Do I just go tempo brute here? I think I just go tempo brute. I get another drag. Oh, do I get another? Oh, I get the Onyxia for more follow-up. So you can see here, I'm just creating this chain of things he has to deal with. And like, a 5/8 isn't that big a deal. It's not a good, like a 7/8, 7-mana 5/8 isn't that good. But I'm just putting just enough stuff that it's just annoying for him to deal with all the time. And he had some really, like, if I had let him breathe for 1 second, he would have had a lot of good plays, but I just never let him breathe. And my original plan was to go Onyxia next, but I get lucky here. Bomb hits go well, bam, lethal. So, and I kind of want to show you now. Okay, so I wanted to show a game I have against Bloody Face, where I thought I made a lot of weird decisions, and I just want to tell you guys about the value judgments I was kind of thinking here. And I think Crystal Power is good, but I was thinking same kind of thing. I like having early minions. Early minions can doing a lot of chip damage. And I do a very non-standard play here on 2, where I go Dreamway. And it's very non-standard because the very natural play was to go Overgrowth next turn. But I kind of used that mana from the nature studies. And you think, well, why did I do that? Well, the thing was, I was thinking I didn't have anything to ramp into. Now, if I'd known I was going to top deck this, I would have probably waited. But that being said, I probably top deck that one. So I think some of the other ones are a little bit more susceptible to Bladestorm. So part of the problem with just if I get Overgrowth into, for example, the other 5-mana ones, Bloody Face just goes Bladestorm, and I'm in bad shape. So I thought I'd rather have these little annoying chip minions. It was kind of the same way I was approaching the matchup. And so I believe let's see what it is. Yeah, goes face here. Interesting line. Okay. And I do a play here where I go the 5-drop here instead of Guardian Animals. And I thought about this later, and I think this was a definite mistake. I think I was thinking I'd rather be able to rush the stuff into a minion. But here's a spot where it's very unlikely, especially when I have a minion on board, that she is going to play a minion. So I think, and also it would allow us to play on curve. So this was a definite mistake on my end. I think I was just getting cheeky here, thinking, oh, and this is what we call fancy play syndrome. For sometimes it's just best to do the standard play. So make sure, you can definitely learn about these value judgments that I'm talking about and the weird plays, and you can go crazy. I did a classical fancy play syndrome play here. So I ended up having to do this, and now my board's even wider, so I'm more susceptible to brawl. So I think it would have been much better for me to go Guardian the previous turn. So anyways, I do this, and this is a spot where I'm considering Crystal Powering my own face, and I think I should have done it. But the reason why was I had plenty of health at the time, and I was trying to hold information back. So the main advantage of holding Crystal Power is, because it's very unlikely I'm going to use it on a minion, is to hide information. So being hide information Bloody Face is far more likely to make incorrect plays. So she might think that, oh, she can pull off a lethal in 2 turns and stuff like that, but really she can't, because I'm going to just heal. Here I go Geppetto, very natural play, and I go Geppetto first because I don't have that many beasts. I think I didn't want to. In case this is the reason. So there's a case for drawing first. I think that's very standard Hearthstone Judgment. But I draw first because I knew if I hit Ysera, and I had a very good odds of hitting Ysera, I would be able to potentially hit a dragon this turn. And then I end up coining out this. I don't like this now. I think I would have been better off just coining out the crystal power. This board's very likely to be cleared, but there is a benefit of if she does a clear here, then my dragons are more likely to come out and get value the following turn. But same spot of, so I have no bombs in my deck, so I was thinking I think I have 1 bomb in my deck, so I was relatively safe. That being said, I think I could have played this safer. We see here, so the 2 bombs hit. Let's see, I think I have about 20 cards in my deck at this point, maybe 18. So the odds of a double bomb hitting are about 1 in 9 times 1 in 18. So maybe it's like 1 in 10 times 1. So it's about 1 in 200. But that might be a spot where, look, it almost happened. So it's a thing of, it might have been worth it to play around that 1 in 200 there because I'm so ahead here. So here's a complicated turn, but I had a lot going on. But I end up doing these crystal powers, and then I go crystal power first. I only have 1 bomb in my deck, so I'm completely safe. But I get more information first. I do another one, hit some more dragons. And I feel like, and I'm looking for lethals here, and then I find one at the last second. I took a lot of, it was, the casters were afraid for me, rightfully so, because I have a reputation for having slow APM, but my APM was fast enough there, guys. So anyways, those were just some spots where I wanted to show you, and I liked that 5-drop play because that was a very good example of me doing a non-standard play that was just wrong. Because I was thinking, like I want her to play some minions so I can rush them in and get value. And I really should have just done the standard tempo play there, but I got cheeky. I got like, and that's what we call fancy play syndrome, where you kind of look too much and you forget that at the end of the day, tempo is king. So when you do a non-standard tempo play, when you hold a resource, you hold value, you don't use your mana. Make sure you have a good reason for it. Anyways. So last, I want to talk about where do you take this information? I've gone over some spots, I've gone over some values, I've shown you some games and some of the value judgments I made and kind of how I played a little differently than I think maybe contradicted some values. And I want to talk about how do I take this as a player? Okay, values, I get it, all right. What do I do though? Like there's so many values, so many things to do. So I think what I'm trying, if I'm trying to learn a deck, you go watch a player who plays it well. I'd say top 200 legend ideally, but you could still, and so the deck you want to learn, and then try and figure out, watch their plays, and it's not necessarily about the fancy plays, it's about the subtle plays. Like, they played a minion here where I would have played a weapon, or they floated mana here, I would have used this, or why did they use this resource? And try to figure out what they are valuing that you are not. Now, sometimes they just make mistakes. Sometimes they might, but instead of trying to defend your own place, try and figure out what they're thinking. Sometimes they'll just tell you. If you're watching a stream live, I watch a lot of VODs myself because I generally don't have as much time to watch live because I'm streaming myself. But I will watch streams basically after the fact. But if you're watching live, the benefit is you can just say, why did we do this play over that? And that's kind of a question that you can ask, or what did this value be? And you can try and figure out what the streamer is thinking. What are they valuing? I know it can be frustrating as streamers. Sometimes I just physically make mistakes, and then everyone's like, would it lethal be better? And I'm like, no, no, no. It's actually the better play to not lethal. Yeah, it's always better than lethal. But sometimes, as a streamer, it keeps you humble with chat. You make a mistake, and then you get 5 questions in chat asking why you did your stupid play. But in general, you can ask the streamer kind of why. Another thing you can just try and figure out, so you can figure out what they're valuing, and that's a really thing. If you're playing a deck and you're trying to learn it, one of the biggest things you can learn is what is the other players, what are they valuing that I'm not? What are they paying attention to that I'm not? What information are they pulling out that I am not? That can be a big thing. And then on sort of levels like, okay, let's say you know your value. So let's say you think you're something a little more advanced. Let's say I've told a lot of students they're overvaluing removing minions. So that means they always try and clear the board. They've learned board control is valuable, and they're always clearing the board. They're always using the resources. They're always reacting, and they're not necessarily doing their proactive game plan. Another thing that I have worked on that I still probably don't do too much is not going face enough. I tend to trade too much because I've played a lot of decks that value trading, and then when I'm playing a deck like Weapon Rogue, I need to go face a lot more. So another thing you can do is what I call bias correction, where you intentionally do it whenever you're kind of on the fence of like, normally I would trade here, but I'm going to go face. Or normally I would remove this minion, but I'm going to try, like an example might be like a Hanari. Oh, I have to remove it. And say, well, what happens if I don't? What happens if I don't remove this questing? And then sometimes you're like, oh, okay, there's a really good reason why. But sometimes you'll say, oh, I could have held on. I could have waited. This minion wasn't as big of a deal, or trading this minion off wasn't that punishing. So you want to get reference experiences outside of your normal biases. So if you normally have certain biases in the way you play, getting references and sort of getting these things so you can make better value judgments in the future. So you can go face and get punished, or go get face and get rewarded, and be looking for these. So by doing plays outside of your normal biases, you get references, and that will help you make better value judgments in the future. So one, we can look for other players. You can do this with friends. You can do this with streamers. But find what they are valuing that you are not. What information are they paying attention to that you are not? And two, we try and correct our biases, and we try to make it so we maybe have something where, okay, I go face too much, or oh, I don't spend my mana. So something I often do with beginner players, and I make a joke is we look at the bottom right. If it's 0 at the end, we did a good job. If it's anything higher than 0, then we messed up. Now this is a heuristic. The higher you get, you need to throw away this rule eventually. But for beginner players, the amount of times I see them just floating ridiculous amounts of mana, it hurts me. So that's something, chances are, if you've never gone into Diamond, if you've never gone into Legend, you need to value tempo more. I can always guess. I'll talk to players, oh, I've been playing for a while and I haven't gotten to Legend or I haven't gotten to Diamond. And I'm like, you're probably not spending your mana. And they always aren't spending their mana. They're always not tempoing. So it's a thing of, that's the thing. It's the fundamental value of Hearthstone. Tempo is king, but there are queens and princes and jesters. There are other values as well. So it's at the end of the day we have compromises, but at the end of the day, tempo is the most important thing in Hearthstone. So if you're not tempoing, that's probably why you're losing. So anyways, we've got so many different values. I've talked about a lot of them today. I've talked to you about all those things that go, and even a real subtle play like that seems obvious, like Zephyr on 2, and all the different values that go into it. We've talked about fancy play syndrome, where you can see sometimes you get too wrapped up in like, oh, I'm going to do the normal standard play because I value this more, and you really should have just gone with the standard play. And we've shown some examples in games where I kind of did non-standard plays. So I hope that is helpful for you guys. I hope that helps you just to think about Hearthstone more. I don't think this is the video to get easy Legend with. I think this is the video to get very hard top 1,000 Legend or top 200 Legend with. To start thinking about these values, start thinking about all the different things you go in and sort of weighting them and competing against them, and having these different things go into how you select your plays. So anyways, hope that was helpful, guys, and yeah, enjoy. Anyways, one last thing. I hope you guys like this video. Always happy if you guys like, comment, and subscribe, but do whatever you feel comfortable with. That being said, if you like this video and you'd like to see more videos on some of the individual value judgments that I talked about tempo and board, I talked about value, I talked about life. If there's something that a topic, maybe one of these values I talked about, I think we're gonna make one about tempo because it's such a core lesson. But leave a comment saying what's a value judgment you'd like to learn about in the comment section. Say this is what I'd like to learn about. So leave that. Hope you guys enjoy, and yeah.